Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Steven Inks. Today we're looking at a vintage pen, one that's not in production anymore, but was gifted to me by a viewer of this channel. I'm very excited to talk today about the Platinum Pocket Pen. And this is hard to see, we're gonna look at it up close, but this is a delightful floral pattern finish. I've never seen anything like it before, but it's gonna be a different experience and something that you might want to look into if you're into vintage pens. This will be one of the first pens that's not currently in production that I will review on this channel. So if it goes well, maybe we'll see a few more like it in the future. Let's get started. This is a Platinum Pocket. Now, I looked into this and these pens are no longer in production, which is a shame because this is really cool, but they can be found on eBay. I've not found anything with this cool floral pattern, so this is pretty special. It was given to me by Quek, a viewer of this channel from Singapore, which is super awesome. Thank you so much. I am already in love with this pen. We've got a gold colored clip and it's got some spring to it. So you can see, for some clips the springiness is just the metal itself, but you can see that this actually has a spring mechanism, which I really prefer because it means that the pen is designed to have the clip stretch out to hold whatever you're clipping it to. I sometimes clip my pens to my pants pocket, which is a little bit thicker pair of dress pants for my work than like a shirt pocket or other places you might clip a pen. So I like when you've got a little bit of room, and it does feel really solidly built. We're looking at a lightweight metal, I would guess probably an aluminum. And look at that. Okay, I gotta know, let me just get this out of the way. I gotta know, this nib, is this the old school carbon desk pen nib? Because I have one of those and I didn't plan this, but I'm sorry, I'm gonna get up from my seat and go grab that pen. Alright, this is high quality content while you wait for me to find my stuff that I probably should have taken out beforehand. I'm just gonna compare these two, and I think what we've got is very similar. It looks like it's not exactly the same, but let's get a little zoom in here. Okay, so this is the old school style of carbon desk pen. Platinum does now make a new one, but if you've seen my video on it, I much prefer the old style. You get a super fine nib. We are not thriving in the focus department. Let me just, there we go. Can you move it a little bit closer? So, there we go. All right, so very similar looking nibs. And that was my only point there. I really like the nib on the carbon desk pen, so I have a feeling that I'm gonna enjoy this one very much as well. Look how tiny it is. That's so cool. I love the floral pattern. It's super nice looking. The gold accents I really think are a great choice for this pen, as opposed to like silver accents. And then we got kind of a long cap. This definitely draws comparison to the Pilot pen, the E30, E35S. I can't remember if that's the right name for that pen. You know which one I'm talking about, the little pocket pen with the gold nib. This is definitely gonna be a steel nib, but I think there's a lot that we can do with it that's worth looking at. So yeah, this is the pen capped. You see a full-size pen here, but then uncapped, flip it around. That's a really handy-sized pocket pen with a good clip. I love it. Let's look at the internals. Get that out of the way. All right. I've got what looks like a platinum cartridge in here that's spent, and these cartridges can be very useful for, what's in there kind of tight. There we go. See how deep that goes? These can be very useful for just refilling using a blunt needle syringe, or you can buy platinum cartridges. They're not too expensive. I do prefer converters, so I do kind of want to test. I've got a platinum converter here. I'm just going to slide it in and see if that fits over the back. It's not looking promising. This might be a converter, cartridge only. Yeah, it's hitting up against the back there. So this is going to be a cartridge only pen, and I know that's going to bother some people. I'll tell you what though, and it would bother me normally, but look at this pen. Look how adorable this pen is. I forgive you, Platinum Pocket. You may go about your business. So we're going to just fill with a blunt needle syringe. We're going to explore that as a possibility. The possibility of using platinum cartridges with this pen. We're going to start to play with it. Now, finding an ink for this pen is a challenge because what color do you put in a white pen? I do like to kind of match pen color to ink color. I have a very loose kind of idea of what I want to do. So I decided I would maybe just try and pick up some accents from the floral design in this pen. So I'm going with Pluto and Beyond by Colorverse. And this is an ink, I've had this ink for 2 years, I want to say. And it's a pretty good ink. I don't find a lot of use for it. It is a slow drying ink, so I'm going to have to be very careful not to smudge when I'm drawing with it. Let's just see what we got here. And due to the fact that I'm using a cartridge, I would not be able to fill this in the traditional method. And the Colorverse bottles, I really like this brand, but the Colorverse bottles, let's just say that they are not the easiest to fill from. So that's one criticism I have of that company. I do love their colors and what they make. And the names of their inks are always enjoyable to me as a science teacher. But we're going to grab this cartridge out. So I got the cartridge here, and this is what we're putting the ink into. I know this is not completely clean, but it was filled with a green colored ink, and I'm just going to go with it. I'm just going to let it be. So taking the syringe in and drawing it up a little bit. You really don't need a lot to fill an ink cartridge. Let's just get this going here. Once it's in there, you can see that was just a little tiny bit and about halfway full. I'm going to get a little bit more, but I don't like to overdo it with these things. It doesn't need to be 100% full to the top. You can actually end up overfilling it when you're filling through this method, and then you have ink kind of pushed and forced up through the feed into the pen, and you might get a little bit of a burp or a kind of a spurt of ink out the top. Not the worst thing in the world, but something worth noting. So this pen is ready for action. And we'll give it a few minutes to let the ink kind of seep up through the feed, something you have to do when you fill with a syringe. But after that, we're going to try and play some lines. We're going to do some lines. We're going to, don't take me out of context on that. We're going to draw, and we're going to do it by drawing lines with a pen. This is a pen. All right, see you in a little bit. Okay, let's experience this pen together. I do kind of worry because this is a metal, like a painted or coated metal finish. I certainly hope that these floral patterns don't get scraped off with the posting and unposting of the pens. This pen really can't, I can't at least use this pen unposted. It's not going to be comfortable for me to be holding a pen like this. Some people do like to do that, and I appreciate you, but I do not understand you. So let's get into it. We're starting with some scribbly lines. Okay, here's what I'm seeing. First of all, this is a very thin extra fine, or is it a fine or an extra fine? Let me just look again. It does not say. It feels like an extra fine. This feels like a like the Platinum Carbon Desk pen type of fine. It's a little scratchy. People who are nice about scratchiness in nibs, they'll call it toothy. I've used that word before myself, but it's a little scratchy. But you can't really get super thin lines and not have it be a little bit scratchy. Some skipping, but I think that's also just to do with the thinness of the nib. Forward writing works really great. Reverse writing is scratchy, and I want to just like really quickly come up front here and see, so you can see this. It did hold the line for the entire time. It's just so thin that it looks almost skippy from the back there. Skippy, that's a new term for it. Like it was skipping. So we do have forward and reverse writing, which is very nice to me. I use both of those things. So let's do some shapes. Interesting. And this is not great, but it's manageable when you're going super fast. It seems like it doesn't want you to, you don't get the full complete line. Let me just try it again really quick with this square. Okay, that wasn't bad, but with that circle, I went a little bit fast and ended up kind of not getting all the lines that I wanted. This is going to be a fine detail pen, and it's going to be a pen for very smooth paper. There's a trade-off for all of the very specific things that someone might want with a pen. People looking for super fine line weights are going to have to deal with a little scratchiness, little toothiness. I've yet to see a super fine line that has none of this. And different inks will have different chemical compositions, meaning that they'll be slightly more apt to flow or less apt to flow, so you'll have a slightly different experience depending on what ink you're using, what filling method, all of that stuff. Now this has to be a cartridge pen, and I do find, I don't know why this is, and maybe someone could tell me, I feel like converters have more consistent flow than those big cartridges with just ink dumped into them. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it just feels, from my experience, like that's what I'm seeing. But look at what I can do here. I'm going over, and I don't normally spend this much time on one shape, but I can really just go to town on a bunch of little tiny details. How fun. I enjoy this a lot. So definitely worth looking into a pen like this if this is what you're looking for. I will admit to you, I don't think this pen is for everybody. It's for me though. I'll say that. This meets my specific needs of things that I want to see in my pens. Just the ability to jump in and spend as much time as you want, really, just getting the lines that you want in there. You can go super detailed in textures. You can go right up in there with lots of fine lines. That means that you're spending more time drawing. A good, solid, super Japanese extra fine. It's a specific niche need that not everyone has, but having worked with several pens that have this super fine line, like the Carbon Desk pen that I showed off earlier, my Platinum Preppy, my Sailor Pro Gear Slim, and even my Platinum 3776 Century, which both of those last two pens I mentioned are gold nib pens that are super high up on the expense line for like what pens cost. They're two of the most expensive pens that I own, and they all kind of have that toothy sort of feel to them. So if you're really not into that, I don't think I recommend this pen, but that doesn't mean that I think that this is a bad pen. For me, these are really fun pens to use. Something you should probably keep in mind though, if you want to make a really great drawing with a pen like this, you kind of need to account for it taking more time. So that's just my experience. When the lines are thinner, you gotta build up value or darkness and lightness in a drawing is what we mean by value. You got to build that up over time. So you may notice that this looks kind of light, what I've got here. I might even go over this several times to get some layers of darkness into it if I were really trying to build a finalized drawing. But then you also have so many lines that you can really build a texture where your lines sort of disappear. You just get those tones. That's really fun, and that's a really cool thing to do. Definitely this versus a different pen that I might use would change my style significantly of what I'm drawing. So keep that in mind. Art. Advice. Divide your time. Divide your time on art between skills and creativity. There are two major aspects of drawing and art, and it's true of, I think, most expressions of art. Being good at music, being good at film and video, painting. What else do people do? Knitting, I suppose. There's technique and there's creativity. So if you work on building your skills, your practice might look a little different. You might be hatching a bunch of shapes like I did up here, or practicing different textures and trying to recreate things from pictures, drawing from reference, that sort of thing. And then on the other side, there's creativity, putting ideas together, taking stuff that you learned over here and stuff that you learned over here and combining them into something cool and weird and whatever it is you're trying to go for, something unique and new. And that's a skill in and of itself. But I don't think that necessarily practicing this leads to this, or that practicing this leads to this. So in a way, you kind of want to split your time up, or how you divide your practice time for art between these two things. Figuring out how to riff on some ideas, but also figuring out, when you know what ideas you want to use, what skills are you going to put to use in your artwork. It's two sides of the same coin, but they kind of, sometimes I feel they have to be tackled sometimes a bit separately. So keep that in mind, and let's draw. So just like I predicted, this particular drawing took about double the time that my normal drawings take, but I think the trade-off is kind of worth it here, because you have the ability to really go deep with details, and also to have some subtlety with the values that you put in here. I was able to do some very light lines for lighter shadows, and then go darker without having to fully black out any of the parts that I was looking at. And I feel like that's something that some of my more heavier lined pens, although they do help me simplify details, and they may in that way be helping me become a better artist, it's just nice to be able to have some subtlety in what you're doing, and hopefully that kind of pays off in the final product, that the drawing has a little bit more finesse to it, which I think that it does. I hope that you enjoy it as well.
Before I get called out in the comments, I do want to point out that I spelled beginning wrong, and I fixed it, sort of. I'm going to blame it on the plant. That is my drawing for today. Imperfect, but the pen made it extra fun to do.
For final thoughts, this is a wonderful pen. I'm really happy that I had a chance to look at it, and I will be using it a lot in the future. So if you're interested in this pen, the only way to get a hold of it is to search it out and find where you can get it. This could be on eBay or your favorite auction site, or possibly going to a pen show and finding some vintage pens and looking for this one. It has my favorite nib on any Platinum pen, the same pen as the original Platinum Carbon Desk pen, and that is a super fine nib, useful for anyone looking for that particular experience, and it's a very unique experience to other pens. So if you're looking for that, if you're interested in that, do your research, find the pen for you. I've already got mine, and I will keep it forever. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. The subscription will help you keep knowledge of future pen videos that I'll be making, and I'm sure I'll be making some more vintage pen videos in the future. Until then, I'll see you next time.